brothers and sisters. Welcome to episode number 146 in the Gospel of John. Today's going to be an interesting idea. What happens when you're notified right in the middle of sin? And how should you respond when you're caught right in the middle of sin? Now, the scenario is Jesus is being mocked by color and cloak and crown. Remember, the color's purple and ultimately of very high value in that society. The cloak is an authority marker of a king. The crown is one of thorns. And he's also been derided by the confession, "Hail the King of the Jews," even though they don't believe it. And then they're scorned by their conduct, where he's being struck by their hands rather than worshipped with their hands. And in this mock state, this happens. So this is John 19, verse 5. So Jesus came out. He's brought out to the Jews wearing a crown of thorns and the purple robe. Pilate said to them, "Behold the man." When the chief priests and the officers saw him, they cried out, "Crucify him! Crucify him!" And Pilate said to them, "Take him yourselves and crucify him, for I find no guilt in him." Verse 7, the Jews answered him, "We have a law, and according to that law, he ought to die because he has made himself the Son of God." When Pilate heard this statement, he was even more afraid. He entered his headquarters again and said to Jesus, "Where are you from?" But Jesus gave him no answer. So Pilate said to him, "You will not speak to me? Do you not know I have authority to release you and authority to crucify you?" Verse 11, Jesus answered him, "You would have no authority over me at all unless it had been given you from above. Therefore, he who delivered me over to you has a greater sin." That's the verse I want to drill on today. Therefore, he who has delivered me over to you has a greater sin. So Jesus is saying, we interrupt this trial to bring you the sin of Pilate and the sin of Caiaphas. So he who delivered has the greater sin. That probably refers to Caiaphas, the high priest, who's standing outside in the courtyard. But that's his problem. So Caiaphas is plotting and scheming and greatly sinning. But Pilate, that's what I really want to talk about today, probably in the potential misuse of his authority, is also sinning. And Pilate has agency, not over Caiaphas' sin, but over his own sin. So Jesus is accurately accusing Pilate of sinning, which is to say, he's notifying Pilate, and he's saying, hey, you're sinning right now, and it would be best to do the right thing with it. So Pilate gets a specific word from the Lord in real time that not only is Caiaphas sinning, but that he is sinning. He's being seen. So this is some beautiful things. He's being seen and watched and assessed. And yes, he's coming up short, as we all do. His actions and intentions are being judged and measured. And the Lord is saying, you are sinning right now. Or in a nice way, maybe preemptively, is you're being warned. So Jesus is telling him that what he's doing is wrong. And I think he's saying, you can do better right now. So here's the thing about sin, is we have agency. We have choice. And Pilate is making decisions that are resulting in the unfavorable judgment of God himself in real time. So he's experienced what I like to call being kept on a short leash, like you're training a dog. You know the Lord's Prayer, lead us not into temptation, deliver us from evil. In other words, Lord, don't let me stray far from you. Before I stray, give me a corrective jerk on the leash. Help me to act right. Speak to me before I sin, before I speak, before I look, before I am carried away. So again, Pilate is being caught in real time in sin. It reminds me of this passage, which I think we should go to in James chapter 1, verse 13. Let no one say when he's tempted, I'm being tempted by God. For God cannot be tempted with evil, and he himself tempts no one. But then he explains where sin comes from. But each person is tempted when he is lured and enticed by his own desire. And then watch this biological process here. When desire has been conceived, it gives birth to sin, and when sin is fully grown, it brings forth death. So Pilate, what he's saying to Pilate is, we're right in the middle of the temptation of his life. He is right at this episode being lured and enticed by his own desire, probably to stay in power by his wiles and his scheming politics. So this desire has already been conceived and is now grown into the birth of sin, and he's being put on notice by Jesus. So think of the conception of a baby. It's two half cells that come together, they make one cell. That cell divides and divides and divides, and at the time of birth, it has trillions of cells. But here's the thing, they're not fully formed, they're not coordinated. But when it is fully grown, there's about 30 trillion cells, and it's organized, and it's matured, and it's strong. And Jesus is warning, it's bringing forth death. So Jesus is telling Pilate, you are on this path. You've already given birth to sin, because Jesus calls it a sin, and your sin is maturing. And you can stop this. You can do better. You have agency. You can prevent your death, Mr. Pilate. So he's being caught in sin in real time, right in the middle of sin, and it's not over. But Pilate continues to sin, unfortunately. So here's the teaching point. When you are notified from heaven that you are sinning, or even more mercifully, that you're about to sin, then do something. Stop. Pray. Call out for help. Be sober of eye. Be sensitive of spirit. Be slow of tongue. Now, I'm not sure that sinlessness is possible, but I am sure that less sin is possible. So for you, have you ever been notified by heaven that you are sinning? It's a big deal. God is trying to help you. He loves you enough to give you a choice. He gives you election. And sometimes he gives you this agency with a warning first. And if this happens, don't be like Pilate. Don't continue to sin. Flee from it. Take the door of escape. Turn and run from it. So listen for the notification that you are sinning now, or even better, be careful that you're about to sin. Let's listen for that today. Thanks for listening.